Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ready, okay? It's in my heart. That's okay. Good evening, everyone, for Tuesday, April 1st, City Council meeting for Paso Robles, and it is 5 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Melissa, will you call roll call, please?
Councilmember Bausch? Here. Councilmember Beal? Here. Councilmember Gregory?
Here.
Councilmember Strong?
Here.
Mayor Hammond?
Here. Closed session items tonight, we have two, and I'll let our legal counsel, Kellen, is with us today.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Good night. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kellen Martz, legal counsel for the evening. Tonight we have two items in closed session, conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation and existing litigation. So we'll adjourn momentarily to wherever this nice place adjourns to, and we'll discuss those, and we'll come back, and if there's anything to report out, we will report those things out.
So just to be clear, Kellen, we have two, the ones in anticipated litigation, and the other one is existing litigation. There's two items that we're going to talk.
Correct, and for the public, those are both on the agenda.
Yes. Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and then open up public comment. Anyone regarding these items on closed session matters can come forward and speak. Seeing none in the audience, do we have anyone online?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll go ahead then and adjourn to closed session and return at 6 p.m. Good evening, everyone, to Paso Robles City Council meeting for Tuesday, April 1st. We'll reconvene from closed session at 6 o'clock, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by some special guests. And if you would please stay standing for Rabbi Gordon as they do the invocation. So can we have Clark Huat and his friend Milo join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wow, thank you, guys. Rabbi Gordon.
Almighty God, I begin my prayer with an act of charitable kindness. Creator and Master of the universe, after the biblical story of the great flood in which you spared Noah and his family, you gave guidance and instructions through them to all of humanity. You taught how to lead a moral, ethical, and productive life in the form of 7 guiding principles, also known as the 7 Noahide laws. These laws are found in the Bible in the book of Genesis and its sacred commentaries, and include to worship you, not to blaspheme your name, not to commit murder, not to engage in illicit relationships, not to commit theft, not to be cruel to any living creature, and for every society to be governed by just laws that are based on the recognition and acknowledgement of you, O God, as the sovereign ruler of all humankind and all nations. Almighty God, guide the members of this city council who convene to fulfill your very guidance to establish such just laws. Bless them with health, clarity, wisdom, and compassion. Almighty God, I beseech you today to bless the council members, staff, and our entire city in the merit of the great leader and spiritual giant, the late Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of saintly and blessed memory, who described this country as a nation of kindness, who passionately shared the richness and importance of the said 7 Noahide laws for all to embrace, and whose birthday we will be commemorating next week and recognize here this evening. Finally, I ask that you bless Mayor Hammond and all our council members with the peace of mind to fulfill these sacred duties. May it be your will, Almighty God, that the efforts of the council members be successful, empowering all the individuals in this great city to be decent human beings, considerate of others, reverent of you, and ready to do their part towards the ultimate goal of a perfect world in which your presence will be manifest. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, would you call roll call, please?
Councilmember Bausch. Let the record show that Councilmember Bausch is absent. Councilmember Beal. Here. Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Present.
Mayor Hammond.
Here. And we'll start with staff introduction next, on my right.
Melissa Boyer, City Clerk, joined by Mary Sponholtz, Deputy City Clerk.
Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Christopher Alecco, Utilities Director.
Dita Esperanza, Capital Projects Engineer.
Ryan Burnell, Administrative Services Director.
Frida Furman.
Randy Harris. Andy Dorr, Police Chief.
Chris Hewitt, Interim City Manager.
Kellen Martz, City Attorney's Office.
Thank you. So we did just conclude closed session. I'll let Council Colin Muir go ahead and report out for us, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session tonight to discuss the 2 items on the closed session agenda. The first item is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, 1 case. And then number 2 is conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. Name of case, the Tribune versus City of Paso Robles and Chris Bausch. Case number 25CVP-0080. The meeting was attended by 5 council members, until 5:20 when the meeting was attended by 4 council members. As to item 1, anticipated litigation, the reportable action is the city council voted 4-0 to initiate litigation, subject to final internal review. If and when such litigation is formally commenced in the matter, further information may be reported, subject to legal requirements and limitations. There was no reportable action related to item 2 on the agenda, and this concludes my report.
Very good. Thank you, Callan. Moving on to presentations, I have 2 to do, plus some others that are going to be coming from the lectern. So if I can have Maggie Payne, you want to join me up here?
Come on up, guys. Well done on the flag salute, too. Perfect. Why don't you turn around? There you go. Okay, Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2025. Whereas the Paso Robles City Council recognizes that every moment in a child's life is an opportunity for that child to learn, that the quality of these experiences may determine whether a child succeeds in school and in life, and that all children need caring and loving adults in their lives. And whereas April, Month of the Child and Abuse Prevention Month, makes a time to recognize that our community's children are precious assets, that the quality of every early year in their life is a collective responsibility, and that we commit ourselves to ensuring that each and every child has access to high-quality environment that at home, at the child care, at school, and in the community that will promote their optimal growth and development. Whereas in the solidarity of San Luis Obispo County Early Care and Education Planning Councils and Advocacy Committee, we as the community of partners and leaders envision San Luis Obispo County whereas all families can find and afford quality of care for their family, children, and where their children are cared by professionals that are valued for their critical role in building a solid foundation for children and their families to thrive in this world. Whereas Saturday, April 5th, 2025, will commence and commemorate a Day of the Child at the annual Children's Day in the Plaza celebration from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in San Luis Obispo Mission Plaza. This year's celebration, where children and families will have the opportunity to discover creativity, individuality, diversity, and the arts while exploring community resources. And whereas Friday, April 25th, our community and county will participate in the statewide raising of the Children's Memorial Flag to honor and raise awareness about the many children in the midst who suffer daily from abuse, neglect, and the pledge of our support for strategies to strengthen families and protect our young ones as part of the national recognition of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, John Hammond, by virtue of authority vested in me as mayor and speaking on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as the Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month. Thank you for that. Oh, wow.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right here for Chris. Very well done. Thanks, Clark. You want to go ahead and say something? Sure.
Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Mayor and esteemed council members, this is my son Milo and his buddy Clark, and along with Elisa Hua and myself, we are here to celebrate the proclamation of April as Month of the Child. My name is Maggie Payne, and I am here representing the San Luis Obispo Early Care and Education Planning Council. I'm also the Special Projects Coordinator at First Five. We, in partnership at the Early Care and Education Planning Council with families and the community, plan for and promote accessible services of the highest quality for the care of all children and youth, including our 4- and 5-year-old. I am deeply honored to stand before you today as we recognize this month as a time to celebrate, uplift, and commit ourselves to the well-being of the youngest members of our communities. First, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the City of Paso Robles for this meaningful recognition. This proclamation is not just an acknowledgement of the work that we do, but a call to action for us to ensure that every child has the opportunity to grow, thrive, and succeed. Let us continue our collaboration to break barriers, provide resources, and create a future where every child, regardless of background or circumstances, has the opportunity to reach their fullest potential. Quality early learning experiences are an incredibly important part of a child's life, and affordable, accessible, quality childcare is increasingly being recognized as a key economic mobility strategy in our Central Coast communities. We would like to thank and recognize Paul Sloan and the city's economic development team for including child development and child care as part of the city's 5-year economic development strategic plan. This support of childcare will help to create a connected community for our children and families. It truly takes a village to raise children, and we're so glad that you're all a part of ours. Thank you for taking the time this month to pause and reflect on how we as adults and leaders can impact our community's children and families in every decision that is made within these council chambers. I'm wearing blue today to also honor my commitment to preventing child abuse, as April is also recognized as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Blue is worn to show support for all those agencies working together to promote programs and activities that create strong and thriving children and families, because every child deserves a hero. We invite all of you to join us at the annual Children's Day in the Plaza on Saturday, April 5th at Mission Plaza in downtown Slow. We hope that you'll be there with us when the festivities begin at 10 a.m. to kick off our day that will include a special recognition for all of you as our local leaders and dignitaries. We'll also take you on a guided tour to provide an opportunity for you to meet with local partner agencies to share new initiatives and their positive impacts in our community. Thank you again for this incredible honor. I accept this proclamation not just for myself, but for all the educators, parents, mentors, and advocates who work tirelessly to uplift and support our children. Let's all keep making a difference together, because when we invest in our children, we invest in a better tomorrow. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for the work you do. Appreciate it. Next, can we have Rabbi Amir Gordon come on up? For you. Okay, today, we'll clear the room here. Today is Education and Sharing Day, Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Whereas, in order to achieve the highest goals, education must be more than just training and in the facts and figures of even the basic skills, as important as they are. It must also include instruction in the deepest ethical values of our civilization. And whereas a global spiritual leader, the Rabbi Menachem Sirshin, stressed the importance of the moral and ethical education as the bedrock of humanity and the hallmark of a healthy society, and strongly urged that education be reinforced by the inculcation of strong moral values, such as education can nurture and unify the diverse peoples throughout, encouraging increased acts of goodness and kindness, imbued with the awareness that even a single positive act of individual care may make a major impact in the world. Whereas April 9th, 2025, will mark 123 years of the Rebbe's birth, and this year begins the celebrations of the 75th anniversary of his leadership as the Chabad Lubavitch movement. Chabad is the acronym of 3 Hebrew words: wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. The name Lubavitch comes from the city which served as the movement's headquarters over a century and means city of love. Of all the ethical values which inform our civilization, none is more important than love. Love of wisdom, love of our fellow man, love of our Creator. These values, with their roots in 7 Nahaweed laws, are the essential education at its best, and we should certainly pass on to the precious heritage of all our young Americans. Whereas Education and Sharing Day is observed each year on the Ribby's birthday in recognition of an outstanding and lasting contributions toward the improvement of education, morality, and the acts of charity around the world. A day of pause and to reflect our responsibility to ensure that our youth have the foundation necessary to lead lives rich in purpose, fulfillment through the service of good works. And now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, John Hammond, by virtue of me vested as mayor of the city of Paso Robles and speaking on behalf of the entire city council, I do hereby proclaim Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, to be Education and Sharing Day in the city of Paso Robles, and call upon everyone to work together to create a better, brighter, and more promising future for all. Ribby?
Thank you. I'm Rabbi Meir Gordon from the Chabad Jewish Center here in Paso Robles, and it's an honor to receive this proclamation. So Education and Sharing Day is commemorated each year on the birthday of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory, which is always 4 days before Passover on the Jewish calendar, sometime in April usually. The Rebbe arrived on the shores of this great country in 1941 after escaping persecution in war-torn Europe. In 1950, exactly 75 years ago, just 5 years after the Holocaust, he accepted the leadership of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which has since grown to become one of the largest and fastest growing Jewish organizations in the world. The Rebbe taught his followers that after everything we have experienced in the Holocaust, we shouldn't hunker down or withdraw. Instead, he appreciated the freedoms that this country and encouraged his followers to grow in their observance, be proud of their Judaism, and to reach out and encourage other Jews to do the same. But this proclamation is not about recognizing the Rebbe's work on behalf of the Jewish community. It's something much greater. This proclamation honors the Rebbe's lifelong efforts to promote access to quality education for all peoples in all communities. Throughout his life, the Rebbe stressed the importance of moral and ethical education as the bedrock of humanity and the hallmark of a healthy society. He urged that education should be reinforced with strong moral values, as it's stated in the proclamation. The Rebbe believed that such an education could bring diverse people together through encouraging acts of goodness and kindness, imbued with the awareness that even a single positive act of an individual can make a major impact on the world. So, as we mark the 123rd birthday of the Rebbe and the 75th year since he assumed leadership of the movement, I am grateful that the mayor and the city of Paso Robles recognizes his outstanding and lasting contributions towards the improvement of education, morality, and acts of charity around the world. We dedicate the day to reflecting on how each of us can ensure that future generations, and even this generation, receive a quality education rich in purpose and fulfillment. An education that doesn't just teach how to make a living, but how to live life. One that tells every child that they matter, that their actions matter. An education that values and cherishes each individual positive act and good deed. One that fosters an environment where we look out for each other, care for one another, and together make the world a better and brighter place. I want to thank community members that came to join us and from the school board that came to be here with this proclamation. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have item 3, capital projects report. Edith Esperanza.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council, and audience. This is my monthly Public Works Capital Improvement Project report. I first will start with the projects under construction. We have before you pictures of update of the Creston Road Corridor project. That's from South River Road to about Orchard. We are continuing with the concrete sidewalk infill construction, curbs and gutters, and curb ramps. You might have noticed that the area in front of the market and paint store that area used to be dirt, and people had to walk on dirt as they walk along Creston Road. That portion has been completed. You can see it's on the lower left corner picture. And I'm pleased to announce that I've also witnessed quite a few people walking around along Creston Road and utilizing the completed sidewalk. So we're still on the sidewalk concrete stage for another 3 to 4 weeks. And then after that, you will see the signal pole, the traffic signal be installed. And then there will be a big push for the final phase, which would be the paving part of the project. And I just want to warn the public that the paving part will be quite challenging, but we know that that is the end, and hopefully the community will just give us a chance to get it done right. And as you know, while we're also doing the Creston Road, we're taking advantage of fixing some of the old sewer pipes. And this is the old sewer, where the Capitol Hill sewer is really old and needs to be rehabilitated. So we're putting in a new connection on Creston Road towards Capitol Hill so that we're out of the way with the paving. And then in the next few weeks after that, we will continue with the upgrade all around Capitol Hill. But for now, we're just trying to put this in the ground so that it's out of the way so that we can pave Creston Road and we don't have to dig it up later.
Ditas, will Capitol Hill also be repaved after they get that work done?
Yes, Capitol Hill is on the 6-year list, the famous 6-year list.
Got it. Thank you.
So I just want to share with you, even though it's quite simple, it's a short run of sewer as shown in this picture. It has been quite a challenge. We have we didn't run into it. We discovered unmarked utility lines that we've had to really go over, and all sorts of procedures we had to go through. So even though it's a short line, it's taken us a long time just because of the challenges that we encountered. And here I show a picture of the signal pole base. It looks kind of like little. I mean, how can that support a pole? But buried way underneath is the foundation for the signal pole. It's there now, and it's waiting. It's on a curing period for the concrete. And once all the concrete for all the sidewalks and curb ramps are completed in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you will begin to see the installation of the signal poles. And as this picture, this is illustrative of what's going to look like at Ivy in front of Daniel Lewis Middle School, which I guess is now called Georgia Brown. I forgot. But there will be a short median right there to allow pedestrians to walk across one side of the street, and they can rest and pause and then look to see if they can cross from the cars the other way. This will give them an ability to cross safely because they're crossing short distances at a time instead of trying to run the whole width of Creston Road. So you will begin to see that raised median being installed. It's really short. It's just for a protection barrier for pedestrians as they cross at this location. And I don't know if any of you have tried pushing the button for the flashing beacon crosswalk. I've tried it a few times. It works pretty good. And so that will be here at this intersection as well. And this is the striping plan that was approved by the City Council. So once the paving is complete, we will pave it in accordance to these typical sections. This is just a plan for the traffic signal at Bolin, Walnut, Creston. And then on the heels of that is the phase 2 portion of the project from from Orchard to Nibley. We're currently in design. We're nearing completion of the design, and we're hoping to advertise for bids later this year. We'll give the community a little bit of a hiatus from enjoying Creston Road phase 1 completion to opening it up for construction for phase 2. This is a picture of the pedestrian improvements in front of the Mid-State Fair. You will notice that there used to be a barrier that took the right turn lane to protect the workers working in that area. That barrier has since been removed, so that right turn lane is now open for traffic, and the sidewalk itself is about 80% complete. So it should be ready for the Mid-State Fair come this summer. The contractor now is at the cross gutter installation at 24th and Park. Again, this is just getting it ready for the eventual widening of the bridge over the railroad. This too will also be finished for in time for the Mid-State Fair pedestrian traffic. This is a picture of the plans for the Sherwood Park upgrade, which happens to include some pickleball courts, some picnic tables, barbecue grill, parking lot, and a new restroom. We had a groundbreaking ceremony, as you can see, from the officials digging in the shovel and throwing a bit of dirt. Several of our council members were here at the event. And you can see the contractor has already, you can see kind of what's going on now. You can see the layout of the pickleball courts. We have a lower court and a lower south court and a upper north court. Now I'm going to move to upcoming construction. South Vine Bridge is currently out to bid. This is an illustration of what that would look like. This is looking north as if you're standing on Theater Drive across Highway 46. And this is a plan view of what South Vine will look like as we reroute it. And a close-up view. So we're out to bid, as I said, and bids are due April 17th. We will review the bids for responsiveness and responsibility, and we'll also work with our finance director to ensure that all the funding is in place before we can award the contract. In the meantime, we did interview 3 potential firms to assist city for construction management services, and we will be prepared to recommend to the City Council to award that contract at your April 15th meeting. And the finance manager has concluded that we do have sufficient funds to at least award that portion of the project. And this is the before picture and the after picture.
Deedus, would the extension of Vine Street from the bridge on around to the old Vine Streets occur also with that project?
That is the responsibility of the developer, but we'll probably need to collaborate, and they'll probably be occurring almost simultaneously. But it's a 50-48 split for that one, but they'll be putting in the underground utilities, which is their responsibility. But we will be working closely with them. And as a matter of fact, the developer's representative assisted staff in selecting the city's construction management service.
Excellent. Thanks.
So we're working with them closely, and the other project coming up is the repairs of the Maryhill Terrace Hill 15th Street project. We had the pre-construction meeting, we were ready to begin, and then started raining again, so we'll hold off on opening that up. The last thing we want to do is get it all started and have a big mess, so we're waiting for the weather to cooperate, and then we will begin that right away.
And can you tell us a little bit about that particular rehabilitation, what that's going to mean? I saw where you've already patched the low, pothole kind of a thing, but what will happen with 15 specifically?
There are going to be local dig-out repairs at areas where the underneath is not good, so we'll repair those, and then it's just grind and overlay.
Okay, grind and overlay.
Yeah, but it's fresh new pavement. There's no curbs and gutters or sidewalks to be done, no pipes to build, so it's a pretty much quick project. I think it's 35 to 45 days. So that's why the contractor can wait till the weather's good so that he can just go in there, get it done, and be done.
Knock it out. Very good. Thank you.
The other project that we're waiting to initially start is also the Serenade Brahma neighborhood. You can see there's quite a few streets that's in the contract. Again, we already had the pre-construction meeting. Contractor gave his base schedule, and then it started raining. So we're holding off on that. They did mark out the limit lines for the dig out repairs. And then once the weather cooperates, we'll go in there and get it done. Again, there's no curbs and gutters or sidewalks or pipes to be done for these streets. So it's just street repair and be done. It's a short construction duration. And that's kind of the theme. That's why we can do a lot of projects, even with a little staff that we have, because it's going to go pretty quickly. We wanted to get it done before we do the bridge.
Yeah.
Or Crescent Road too. So the other project that's ready to construct as well is the airport ramp. We have our pre-construction meeting tomorrow, and then that will soon begin. Again, it's a short duration project. And then finally, we're ready to begin the training tower at Fire Station 3 on Union Road. Same theme. We had a pre-construction meeting, contractor ready to start, started raining, but we're going through the submittals, getting it all ready so that when the weather is dry and sunny, the contractor will move in there and get it done. Again, very short duration project. So it's nice to have all these short duration projects so we can get them all done and get ready for the big ones.
The big one. Got it.
And this is just a close-up view where the train tower base will be constructed with a concrete slab. Coming up for construction is the Flamson Pedestrian Enhancement Project. If you recall, we bid that out last summer. There were some incongruities in the bid doc, so the city council directed staff to reject the bids and put together a rebid package. But by that time, we had missed the opportunity of doing it during the summertime when school was not in session, so we had to hold off. And so we went out to bid in January. We opened the bids last week, and we're reviewing the responsiveness and responsibility of the bid. Looks like we're able to do it, and so we'll be preparing the staff report to recommend award of contract at your April 15th meeting. That one's not quite as short of duration, so we'll be working closely. It should be done by the time school starts.
Is that going to, that project right there is a high traffic area. Is that going to be kind of a plan to get that so people can still move through it at the same time?
Yes, we will have extensive flagging control, but at least the school will not be in session.
Got it.
And that's a close look of how the paving will look like at 24th Street. So we'll have flashing beacon pedestrian push buttons, crosswalks, and then revamp the intersection at Spring and 24th. And then the other project that's coming into construction is the rehabilitation of the downtown parking lots next to Marv's Pizza. That's the one on the left. And then the 12th and Railroad, that's the one on the right. Included with the pavement on the parking lot Marv's Pizza, we're also improving the drainage and the valley gutters at those alleys, because drainage-wise, they don't function very well, so we'll be redoing those as well. And part of the improvements will be the installation of some electrical charging stations, of which we applied for a grant, and so we should get reimbursed for installing those. Again, the bids were opened last Thursday. We're reviewing the bids, and if all goes well, we will be recommending award of the project to you at your April 15th meeting. This is not quite a short duration as the others. That concludes my report, I believe. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Very good. Thank you, Ditas. Questions or Ditas?
Yeah,
Chris?
just a quick question. That was really helpful. Thank you. How do you determine the duration of the crossing lights, for example, on Creston Road?
You mean the how long the flash should be?
Yes.
It's a formula that the traffic engineer has. You estimate, the estimate is people walk at 2 feet per second. You have the distance, if you remember, distance equals rate times time. So distance divided by rate at 2 feet per second is time. Voila, there's your answer.
So even accounting for smaller feet, maybe crossing the.
So the average rate of a human being walking is 2 feet. We can't calibrate it for everything, but we average it at 2 feet per second.
I've just heard about that, that's all.
Yeah.
And then I also get, as you know, a lot of questions about Creston Road. Do you, and you probably do you have some sort of easy infographic or just an outline of where we've been and where we're going? And so much work has been done. Just something that's easy for people to digest.
On Creston Road?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. No. If you go to the website, it's got history. I think the website, if you go to the specific to the Creston Road website, it starts from the very beginning when we had the community workshop. It's got pictures of everything. It's got what the council decided. It's got the community's desires. They made a list of everything. It should be in there. I've seen it. It's got all the history and how we got the grant and all that.
Right. So when somebody asks, what's happening? When's it going to be done? Like, is there something kind of that's a snapshot? It's something that I don't have to read 5 pages through to.
I see. Well, I guess I could create one if you want. It's in there, but we can cull it down if that's what you wish.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, we'll see you.
Okay.
Ditas, I had a question based on Councilmember Beal's question on crosswalks. Are we going to be putting up the little visual countdown second crossing time, where you have 10, 12, whatever the...
No, we're just doing the flashing that says it's
okay.
People are walking. The word in the street is that those countdowns are not the best because people start seeing it and they start running or it hasn't been really recommended.
Really? I kind of thought they were good, but I mean, to be able to tell whether I should try this or not,
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. I was thinking more of the intersection of Spring and 24th up there where the school is. And,
okay.
And those where you're going to be redoing some
things.
things.
We are tweaking that a bit just to, to help out with the crossings.
Yeah. I've just noticed when kids get out of there around 3 o'clock, it backs up the traffic all the way over. Today, it was all the way down to the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
With people trying to get through there. But, okay. Very good. Any other questions? Anyone from the public have a question on Dita's report?
Linda George, 3126 Spring Street, Ditas. As you guys probably saw, KSBY did an article about the increase of pothole claims. My question is it going to be a significant denial? What is the threshold to approve those claims? And are we working on the potholes that are creating those claims? Apparently it was 3 last year, now we're at 7. That's my question.
Mayor, maybe I'll jump in on that one. So, the claim process, each claim is very different. So our risk management team, along with others through our insurance pool and legal, look at those claims as necessary, and each one is a little bit different. So it's hard to put parameters around and generalize on the claim process. With that being said, I know Ms. Berman has some additional information on some work we've been doing as it relates to pothole repair and street repair. So I'll turn it over to her to provide that context.
Thank you, Mr. Huat. Frida?
Yes, sir. So I checked in today after seeing the KSBY report, just to give you an update. And in the first 3 months of this year, we've put down 62 tons of hot mix asphalt. The unfortunate reality of the situation is we put it down and then it rains and we have more potholes to fill. With a crew of 7, we're on the streets every day. And filling potholes, we work on a grid system throughout the city. We also respond to our to-do list, which is off the reporting system on the city website. We encourage citizens to report what they see, and we triage and address the most serious ones. Obviously, Creston Road is a challenge with the construction going on there. You know, the road deteriorates greatly around the trench lines and that sort of thing. We actually did some night work to address those situations so that we can try to minimize the situation. But the effort is extraordinary by the streets crew. They get all the credit, but we're putting down tons a month. So
Very
just
good.
wanted to give you that update.
Thank you, Frida. Anyone else? All right. Go ahead and close that item. And next we have on presentations, supplemental sales tax oversight review committee. Ryan Cornell, you have that item.
Yes, hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Ryan Cornell, Administrative Services Director. The Supplemental Sales Tax Oversight Committee was created as part of Measure E12, now I-24, and as well as J20. What the committee primarily does is review the expenditures that those funds are being utilized. And then part of the bylaws includes a presentation by some committee members to the City Council. So this evening, I'd like to introduce three members, Jim Falconakis, Ms. Carly Twizzleman, and James Nuno. They'd like to say a few words this evening. Thank you.
Very good. Jim, you go first.
Thank you, Ryan. Mayor, City Council, esteemed staff, and the public. We get a lot of information on the Supplemental Sales Tax Committee. I read a survey and it said, how can you tell a drunk driver in Paso Robles? He's the one that hits the potholes. The sober people drive around him. That was on the survey. So it's always kind of interesting on this thing.
That's our traffic calming device. Yeah.
That's how DETAS determines to fill those holes. Our committee consists of 9 members. Some of us are appointed, some of us are by the council, and some of us are appointed by city organizations. Paso Main Street, Carly Twisselman represents that. James Nuno, Olympic tryout athlete here. He's a decathlete at Cal Poly, and he tried out for the Olympics. He got hurt, and that's why he didn't go. Also, who's your guys' best principal you ever had in high school? All right.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question. That was their only principal, so that's a fixed answer. Committee members are Jason Cox, Brian Dobbs, Michael Leahy, Sarah Martin, Michael McMahon, James Nuno, Victor Pop, Cheryl Thomas, Carly Twisselman, and Patricia Wilmore. The council liaisons are Mayor John Hammond now, and Councilman Steve Gregory, who gives us short updates on matters related to the City Council and the committee. The staff representatives on our meeting are Ryan Cornell, the city treasurer, director, and he provides us with multiple amounts of information which James Nuno will report on. Catherine Piatti, who is excellent at sending us all the information on time and very professional. DETAS Esperanza, who fields a lot of the questions that you are asking, Ms. Beal, and I ask always on that committee, the projects engineer. And we have Fire Chief Jonathan Stornetta there, and Police Chief Damian Nord, who gave us a tour of the facilities, very interesting. What little power I have in that meeting, I ask them a question, they come up and answer it at the podium, then I wait and they sit down, and then I ask them another question, they come up and stand at the podium, so I get back at those guys. At this time, Carly Twisselman will talk to you about the SST committee, and followed by James, who will specifically get in and talk about what we do in certification of the funding process. Carly.
Thank you, Jim. Welcome, Carly.
Thank you, Carly Twisselman. So I was just going to do some history of the committee. To ensure public trust, the City Council created an oversight committee to verify that funds were used as requested. The oversight committee was formed to aid the City Council. It is a public body subject to California's public meeting laws. That means all meetings of the committee are public, complete with published agendas, staff reports, public participation, etc. The Supplemental Sales Tax Committee serves as a forum for citizens to review and report to the City Council and the committee on matters related to the sales tax revenues and expenditures from both Measure E12, which was approved by voters in 2012, now I-24, and Measure J20 that received voter approval in 2020. The committee oversees the calculation of supplemental sales tax revenues to ensure they align with community priorities established by the City Council, informed by insights from business and resident surveys and other sources. The committee will evaluate whether the funds were used appropriately and communicate these findings to the council and the public. Additionally, the committee may provide advice to staff and the council. The committee is made up of 11 members, 7 of which are at large, with at least 4 of the 7 positions held by residents of the city at the time of appointment. The remaining 3 at-large positions can be held by someone who lives outside of the city limits, provided they have a business or demonstrate interest within the city. The remaining 4 positions are appointees affiliated with a community organization. To qualify under this category, the person must be nominated by a community organization and selected by a majority vote of the City Council. When there are vacancies or upcoming member term expires, the city will launch a public recruitment where interested parties can apply. And I encourage anyone interested to apply because it's been a very good experience and it's a great honor. So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you, Carly. Mr. Nuno.
Hi, good evening. I'm James Nuno, one of the committee members. As my fellow committee members have kind of gone over most of what we do in our committees, specifically, we receive the reports and information that are provided by the city officials. We then spend the meeting reviewing and asking them questions. If there's anything that is unclear or needs just more clarity, we ask them to bring that information to us, and they do so in a very fast and timely fashion. We always get the information ahead of time through emails, and then we also get a nice packet at our meetings for those of us that aren't as familiar with using email. You have a hard copy, and with the funding documents, then maps are provided just like you asked for earlier. We get some very nice map documents of where we've been, what's next on the list, what are priorities. That being said, the biggest thing that come up in our meetings is we're kind of the in-between from the public and the rest of the city, trying to communicate that information to the public. I know that we try as a city to communicate that information, but sometimes being, regular citizens can also help communicate that. With that said, some of the things that we've heard the most is that information of why projects take so long or why we pick certain projects ahead of others is always a big concern for your constituents. In one that we've noticed, maybe in the future, we've been expressed that just resurfacing first, I know the reason why, we've discussed it a lot in our committee, that the reason is we can cover the most ground that way, but our response that we've heard is that people are more focused on the really bad roads, why those are left to second. So just something to keep in mind when moving forward and selecting projects, that putting those off understandably, but the public does not understand that. And timelines, as we've also discussed, sewer, power, utilities, I think that's something that people don't realize that we run into, that it's not just tear up the asphalt and put it back down. And I think that, the biggest part is police and fire support. This city really supports our men in uniform, and I think that has been shown a great appreciation with this tax, is that we've been able to
increase our emergency services. With that being said, we'll bring up Mr. Fotonakis to, our favorite principal.
Thank you, James.
How high did you pole vault anyway? Who was your best pole vault? 7-1?
Wow.
And high jump? 6-7. Wow. Remember, you do 10 events. In conclusion, I want to say thank you to the people of Paso Robles for passing these measures and giving us the opportunity to collect those finances and spend them on these projects. I originally applied for the committee mainly to support the police and fire, which we've done, I think, very well. When I see young guys, I always try to talk them into applying for the police, and I had one, but Santa Maria got him before we did. So it's really interesting committee to be on. We asked a lot of questions, a lot of poor questions. I know poor Ditas has to fund these. Like, for example, right now that bridge that's going over 46, I would ask her, why are we building a bridge? Isn't it cheaper if there's no water there, why don't we just build a little road that goes up or make it a dirt bridge with a water culvert through it? It'd be much cheaper. And then Ditas would give me this big long answer and I'd go away. Anyway, do you have any questions of our committee?
All right, thank you, Jim.
They could answer tonight.
Anyone from our side?
Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you, Jim. It's amazing. Again, I really appreciate the citizens of Paso Robles passing the, originally back 12 years ago, it was E12, and now it's I-24. But every penny of that goes into the general fund, but also an equal amount comes back into your hands to be able to create new streets and all that. Is super important that people understand that their tax dollars are going directly back into our streets. That's a huge communication thing that we need to make sure everybody understands, that their sales tax override is being put right back into our streets, every penny. So thank you for your service. Well done. Okay. All right, moving on, and we have a little more about traffic and roadways. Caltrans quarterly report, and Gus Kahuri Consulting. Hi, Gus.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, members of the public. Gus Corey, legislative advocate consultant for the city of Paso Robles. I was told that I couldn't speak for 25 hours and 4 minutes like Congressman Booker did over the last 2 days. So I'll try to keep it under 4 minutes. How about that for Mr. Strauss' sake? Pleasure to be here as always. Just thought that I would give you a broad overview of what's going on in Sacramento, then focusing in on some of our local projects here that we're working on your behalf. So as you know, the state legislature is currently in session, and so we're waiting for the release of the May revise, which should come out by the second week of the month. We're holding our collective breath because Governor Newsom back in January had introduced a balanced budget, but that was prior to the new federal administration taking place and some concerns over potential clawbacks with funding, the volatility of the stock market. The state literally plays the stock market. They rely on capital gains, personal income tax, corporate taxes in order to fund our general fund. So for education, which gets 50 cents on the dollar, et cetera. And so they're saying that even back in January that we were projected to have about a $20 billion structural deficit for fiscal year 26-27. We're hoping that this year's figure does not increase because they really don't have any great options other than to cut. They've rated from various funds, just given that there was over a $70 billion deficit that they addressed in June of last year to account for fiscal year 24-25 and 25-26. And so hoping for good thoughts there. Legislatively, the bigger item of interest is congratulations, of course, on passing I-24. There is a conversation that's being had by SLOCOG also to look at the prospects of a regional measure where all 7 cities and the county can determine, the voters of the county will be able to determine whether or not they want additional investments to be made to improve our infrastructure on the state highway system and the other multi-mobility projects. And so that's a preface to say that Senator Laird is carrying Senate Bill 333 in order to allow the county to have that conversation given the various needs that every city has, sometimes the capacity is taken up because you're funding public safety or libraries or what have you. So this is making sure that you can at least have the conversation before something is placed on the ballot to consider whether or not there is a regional measure to be had to address Highway 46, things like the 101-46 interchange and such. So with respect to some of our local projects, you heard Ms. Esperanza speak about Creston Road. We really rely on the state to have that partnership with us because we just can't fund everything ourselves. And so with Creston Road, for example, we were fortunate enough to work with Senator Laird through AB 178 to get a $3 million earmark to bring that project to fruition. For the Niblick corridor, city staff worked really hard and had a compelling application, which we helped advocate for, to get $13.8 million for the Niblick corridor. The South Vine Street, that's funded partially through the local partnership program. And so now we need help on 46 East at Union Road. And so we've been working very closely with Caltrans District 5 and headquarters, and just really want to thank this body. I know, Mr. Mayor, you spent a lot of time with some commissioners. Mr. Strong, you've advocated for this project at SLOCOG. SLOCOG is a funding partner. Interim City Manager Chris Hewitt has also been there to stump, and we're making rounds in Sacramento. We just had a legislative day for the entire Central Coast Coalition on March 19th, met with 6 members, including the California State Transportation Agency Secretary, to advocate for the project. And so, in short, what we're trying to accomplish with the project is we're bifurcating it where we're trying to pursue right-of-way acquisition. It's about a $20 million figure. We're asking for $14 million out of a grant program that's administered by the California Transportation Commission. SLOCOG is putting up about half of the match that's required. It's 30%, so it's $6 million. So that's split between the city and SLOCOG. Caltrans has rated this project to be a 10 out of 10 when it comes to safety. And we're speaking about the broader narrative. This is more than just an interchange project for the city. 46 East, and Member Strong has mentioned this several times, it's really one of the only east-west connectors within a 275-mile radius between Gilroy and Ventura. I think I got that right. You correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but I think that's correct. And so we've seen the Grapevine shutdowns, and we've seen how 101 shuts down too from flooding, snow in the Grapevine. That's happened more than 24 times in just the last 6 years. And so that affects tourism, that affects commerce. And so just being able to speak that narrative that this is really a state asset that needs attention. It's bigger than just the imposition on us. But when you look at a micro level, and for us, it's a very dangerous road to cross. I don't think I have to say that to anybody. I've been in the car with Member Strong a couple times, and it's pretty scary where you have to bisect, traffic that's moving in both directions. And so we're hoping that the Transportation Commission sees the wisdom in trying to get the right-of-way accounted for, and then we can come back the next cycle and ask for the construction dollars. For what it's worth, I've got the former executive director to the California Transportation Commission that's on my staff, and we're working every possible angle. We'll keep talking to commissioners and other partners to try to compel an award. So the Transportation Commission will come out with staff recommendations on June 6th, and then on either June 26th or 27th will be the vote to see if we get the award. And so we'll keep you apprised, and that concludes my report.
Very good, Gus. Questions of Gus? Councilman Strong.
Yeah, Gus, could you explain to everybody here the advantages of being a self-help county and how we get that designation?
Absolutely. So through the chair. So being a self-help county means there are 25 counties out of the 58 in the state that tax themselves initially. So they're called self-help because you're dealing with the congestion, you're dealing with the safety issues. And so it's your ability to be a part of the solution and leverage those local dollars to be able to obtain more state and federal funding, leveraging, so that we can accelerate our response to making improvements. And so I'll give you an example. In Santa Barbara County, they have their Measure A program, which voters approved by almost 80% down there. This was back in 2008. They were making improvements on the 101. That was the centerpiece of their measure. They dedicated $140 million for that project. They've been able to leverage almost $1 billion worth of funding as a result. And it's all about telling your story. It's all about providing that access, to the state funds, and that's sort of one of the qualifications. And so that's where, hopefully with Senate Bill 333, if that gets enacted, you'll have a front row seat at the table to have that conversation, see what North County improvements you would want to see, what the public would want to see as a return on their investment for having that tax considered.
Are we considered a rural area? I mean, when it comes to state money, they usually obviously look at the bigger population centers, but we're rather small, obviously, and that's always a problem when we're trying to garner some revenue from them.
It depends what funding you're going after, and it depends on the designation. So Mr. Straw would tell you something different when it comes to transit funding, and just give them the various designations. When it comes to the highway stuff, I'll tell you that we advocated successfully for the inclusion of language in the Transportation Commission's guidelines to say you have to be able to fund at least one project in a county with a population of less than 500,000. And that's because the 101 is one of your lifeline routes. 46, again, is an important east-west connector. It's not just serving the 32,000 City of Paso residents. It's really, serving state commerce. They're talking about doing more inland ports out in the San Joaquin Valley up to 4. That's only going to increase traffic and safety concerns. And much of this infrastructure has not been improved since the 1950s, when our state population was a third of the size that it is today. So we've been hammering that message home at every turn possible. And I think, again, it's starting to resonate because people are seeing the value proposition of, this isn't just some small tweak that we're doing. This is trying to protect the integrity of the whole entire system.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we're going up in a couple of weeks, Mr. Huot and I, to be knocking on some more doors. So hopefully we'll see you up there too, Gus. So appreciate all you do for us.
Of course. My pleasure.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, then we have one last presentation, Regional Traffic Transit Authority update. Jeff Straw, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, members of the public and staff. My name is Jeff Straw. I'm the Executive Director of the San Luis Obispo Regional Transit Authority, and I'm here to talk to you about what's occurred in the past, what's happening now, and what's on our horizon here. So, quick overview of the transit services operated in Paso Robles. In 2014, your city contracted with the RTA to consolidate local services into the RTA, and since that time, we've operated a bi-directional route. We call them routes A and B that circulate throughout the city in 2 different directions. We also operate the Route 9 service that connects San Miguel and Paso Robles into San Luis Obispo. The bidirectional routes, we call them A and B. They operate Monday through Friday from 6:45 a.m. until 7 p.m. And then Route B is operated on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Your city also funds a dial-a-ride program, so that's a door-to-door service for people who really can't get to the fixed route services. That's operated Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. You operate you fund the program partially with passenger fares, and the fares on the fixed route services are $1.50 for general public riders and half fares or discount fares for seniors, youth, and disabled riders. The RTA Route 9 is a zonal service. It's a much longer route than the local services here. And we have zone fares ranging from $1.75 up to $3.25 based on the length of the trip. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second.
Jeff, question. Does the students or high school students ride free still? I thought they were at one time.
No, during the COVID, we remove fares really just to try to quicken the pace of people getting on and off the bus and provide some social distancing. But it was June of 2020, we put the fares back in because we were starting react to the pandemic in ways to protect riders and drivers. So these graphics here show the fixed route boardings up on the upper left up there and the annual dial-a-ride boardings on the lower right there. You can see that in 2018-19, you had a little bit over about 110,000 riders in a fiscal year. The COVID hit really about February of 2020, so the ridership came down. 2021, you can see was the lowest point. And then it started to climb back up. Our ridership really started to climb back in about June of 2021, and it's really increased. Your system is the only service in this county that is providing more trips today than prior to the pandemic. And there's some reasons for that. Part of that is because of the school district suspending some of their yellow school bus services. But it's also, we provide a lot of trips for people who need to get to jobs and to medical appointments as well. On the lower right is the annual dial-a-ride program. Again, it's really more of a lifeline service. It's only operated again Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a little less predictable. Sometimes we'll get somebody who moves into the area, rides a lot, may move out or stop traveling as much. And so again, those are much less predictable than the fixed route. The next slides I'm going to show you are a month-to-month comparison. And you can see on the upper left up there, that's the fixed route by month. In fiscal year 2020, 2021, during the pandemic, it was very low. It started to climb back up again in January and really started to climb up. Every year, you'll see that it climbs again and again in a pretty predictable manner. You can see the peak really happens in September, October. When school's back in session, we carry a lot of riders. And again, it drops off in the summertime when the kids aren't riding as often. Dial-a-ride is much less predictable. You see it's all over the board, month to month. It really depends on who's riding and how often they're riding during the month. So what's happening now? We're transitioning to zero-emission vehicles. RTA began planning for zero-emission vehicles in 2017. The RTA board adopted a transition plan starting in 2018. We ordered our first two battery electric buses from Gillard Corporation in Livermore in May of 2022. It takes about a year and a half to build those vehicles. They were about $1 million a piece, $1.04 million. A diesel bus was about $660,000, so it's significantly more expensive. We ordered the largest battery pack available in the market, about 686 kilowatts. The high-level Teslas have about 130, so you can get an idea about how much batteries we have on the vehicle. Those buses were delivered in March 2024, started operating them in July 2024. And so far, we're much better than we initially planned. When we adopted our transition plan back in 2018, we assumed about a 2.5 kilowatts per mile. Most cars are, 2 miles per kilowatt, but we assumed that number, and we're coming in about 1.95 kilowatts per mile. So we're operating more efficiently than we initially anticipated, which is great news. We're conducting a study, working with a consultant team to do a bus charging and electrification study. And that's really to help us build out the charging at the park out yards. We've got a bus park out yard off of the 13th Street, northbound 101. You'll probably see it as you're getting on the freeway. You see our buses parked over there. We need to have charging at that location to be able to charge buses overnight. We call that depot charging. Another exciting thing is the Route 9 bus that goes from here to SLO has to traverse the Cuesta grade. We do it 18 times a day, and that incline takes a lot of energy. So we're looking at what we call opportunity charging, and we've identified the transportation center, the North County Transportation Center over at Railroad Square over there, or Railroad Station over there, to do contactless inductive charging. So a bus pulls in, it's got a 10 or 15 minute layover, driver break time. It pulls over a pad and it will charge, kind of top up that battery throughout the day. We're going to put another opportunity charging station in SLO. So each time the bus gets to a station, it can charge up and not have to go out of service. So what's next? We're in the midst of a short range transit plan. This is a real intense 18-month look at our service. What is a short-range transit plan? Well, it's really kind of three stages. One is evaluating existing conditions. We look at population trends in each area, and this was a county-wide plan. So we broke it into North County, Central, South County, and North Coast. And I'll talk about the North County here in a second. But we look at existing conditions. We look at weaknesses Then we look at potential solutions. That happened in the spring and summer of last year. We conducted a public hearing in this room here, or a public meeting to get some input from the public on that. And then in early 2025, we developed alternatives and recommendations, and I'm going to talk about that right now. In the North County area, we're recommending a series of improvements, and I will say that of these three here, we were able, well, tomorrow, the SLOCOG board, the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments, will be considering a funding plan for these projects that were recommended for funding. The first one is Paso Robles High School. I'm sorry, that's not right. It's not Daniel Lewis Middle School. The Lewis Flamson Junior High School we're looking at doing what we call trippers. Essentially, it's a bus that only operates during the academic year, during the bell times to get students to and from school. Right now, we have standing loads on the existing A and B for those routes, and they're really pretty packed. So that service will provide about an additional 1,100 boardings per year, and at a cost of about $19,000. This next one is restoring Route A service. When the COVID hit, on weekends, on Saturdays, we used to operate the Route A and B in both directions. The consultant came up with two different sort of equally valuable recommendations. One is to restore that Route A service on Saturday. The other one is to operate Route B service on Sunday. And one of the things I'm going to ask for today is that folks, we put some papers in the back here that talk about these changes and a way for you to fill out your ideas about what you support for these types of things. And in particular, we want to know about this Route A on Saturday or Route B on Sunday, if that's something that we get support from. So these pamphlets at the back have a QR code where you can go to a survey and fill that information out. The other thing I want to talk about is Route 9 express trips. When the pandemic hit, a lot of people started working from home. We saw the express trips that go from Paso Robles, they go to Atascadero, and then they skip all the way down to Slow. It's a real quick trip down there. The ridership went way down. We're starting to get more and more requests for those services to be restored, and we were able to secure some funding to do that, and it's recommended as part of the short-range transit plan. The other thing I want to mention is, I don't have it listed here, but there's a fare recommendation that's also included in this document where I mentioned the zonal fares, $1.75 to $3.25, depending on the length of the trip. It takes a long time to pump quarters into the fare box. It slows down the boarding process. We're now recommending we go to a $2 per boarding opportunity, and we found some funding to allow us to do that, but it will speed the boarding process, and related to that, we've got a grant to do this a contactless fare program where you use your phone or your chip-enabled card to get on the bus, and we have this thing called fare capping, so that I may get on a bus on Route 9 and then go to Rio Grande, which means I transfer to Route 10, so that's $2 plus $2 equals $4. The next ride I get on would be $6, but it caps it at the daily pass rate of $5.50. So essentially, it makes the discounts more easily attainable for people who can't afford the upfront costs. And so that's something we're excited to do. Our neighbors in the north, the Monterey Salinas Transit, which comes into our town here, into Paso Robles, they're already using this service, so it allows us to go between the services much easier and share those fares. So that's something that we're looking at as well. So again, I've packed a lot of information in here. I'm happy to answer any questions about it. I've got my email address up here and my phone number. I'm happy to answer any questions from the public or from the council.
Quick question, Jeff. You mentioned about Monterey coming down here. Do they come down every day? Can you tell a little bit about how people can connect with that?
Yeah, so we actually negotiated, the RTA board negotiated a contract or an agreement with Monterey Salinas Transit where you pay the slow fare and they can ride all the way up to Salinas. So it's a program, and the main reason of that is because they operate 4 trips a day, and they go into San Miguel. And we wanted to make sure San Miguel people had a chance to come back and forth there, including some high school students who come down here too. Wow. We worked out this plan so they pay the RTA fare in either direction and they can ride all the way. And
they pick up at the train station? Is that where they typically?
Yeah, so the Route A and B come in the same time as the Route 84, and you can just get on that bus, just transfer right on.
Interesting. Yeah, great. Questions of Jeff? Councilman Beal.
Thank you so much for the presentation. You know how interesting this is to me. I hear from people all the time about kind of their hardships around transportation, whether it's getting kids to school or getting to work. We have a lot of workers in our community that are sharing an automobile within a household. I'm hearing from people that they, can't get to their 0 period class. So it's been a long time since I didn't have access to a car, right? And if we could only just imagine what that would be like if we didn't have our car to go do what we needed to do. This kind of transportation is so important for people in our community. I wanted to know, you had talked about doing outreach at the last meeting, so it looks like we have flyers here that we should be distributing. Can you tell me a little bit more about outreach, how that's going to be informing kind of where you go to in the next steps, and then how we can support your effort?
Yeah, so all the input we're collecting input through April 24th in anticipation for an RTA board public hearing on May 7th. And that's when the RTA board will consider adopting the short-range transit plan and those 5 recommendations that are included on this document. So again, there's some things in there that we're asking for input on because we can go either way on them. So we'd like to get input from that. We're also doing what we call pop-up meetings. We're sending supervisors to the transit center to talk to existing riders. And on the buses, we have the QR code so people can either fill it out there, call us, email us, go to our website. This document also has a QR code to the executive summary of the short-range transit plan. So if you want more information, it's all included in that link.
Okay. Pro Tem Gregory.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff, for your explanation. So I had a question. There was a concern about the weight of the buses and the batteries and tearing up our roads a little bit. So do you go back to a redesign on lightening the buses, or what's happening on that?
So we're trying to make the buses as light as we can. And so one of the things that the opportunity charging allows us to do, instead of buying a bus with 7 battery packs, and each battery pack weighs about 2,000 pounds. So the net weight of that diesel bus right there in that picture and the one in the background over there, the difference, the curb weight is about 6,000 pounds. So it's 6,000 pounds more. When you take out the fuel, it doesn't have a fuel tank or an engine or transmission. So that the net difference is that right there. The other thing we've done is we put wider tires and wheels on the buses to try to spread the load out, which is required actually because the bus is so heavy on the front of the bus. We actually have a wider wheel and tire than we have on the standard diesel ones. It's something we're keeping an eye on. But again, when we go to the opportunity charging, we can buy a 5 battery pack so we can remove 4,000 pounds out of that vehicle and still be able to travel as long as we do with the existing ones. So that is one of our methods to do that. We are trying to go as we do everything from even the padding on the seats. We've made it less so that we can reduce every pound we can off those vehicles. So it really is a balancing act that we're trying to figure out. The promise is hope. Well, the promise. The hope is someday we'll get away from the lithium-ion batteries, which are so heavy, and get to something like a solid-state battery, where the weight really could be a third of that weight, and we could be comparable to a diesel vehicle. But it still is a challenge for us. We're not getting the same range we are of that electric bus as that old diesel bus over there. We have 13 blocks today that we call block. A bus that comes back with over 300 miles before it gets back. There's not an electric bus that can do that without getting recharged throughout the day.
Thank you.
Is there a way that you can just keep the electric buses on a fairly level area? In other words, going over the grade, is there any way to change that up where you use a diesel in that mode, or does it have to?
For the foreseeable future. We will be using diesel ones until we can get opportunity charging up and running. So that's our plan.
I would think in the city where you have people interacting with the emissions coming from these vehicles, would be better to have electric versus a diesel running around.
Yeah, in town the routes A and B, they're fine. We can run those no problem with an electric bus, and it really the range isn't the issue on those. We do about 160 miles a day on an A bus and on a B bus. So there's not a problem with that. It's the long range ones where we have the trouble.
Okay, very good. Okay, Jeff Straw, RTA Executive Director, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody would like to have a question, please?
Okay, Linda George, 3126 Spring Street. Subsidies. When I worked for the state, they subsidized BART, and we would get up to $90 a fare. So I'm curious about if employees get subsidies and fare. in this transportation. Also, some people are stating that it doesn't get them from San Miguel to Paso Robles for the farm workers, the hotel workers. So I have heard some tell me that they actually walk from San Miguel in the morning about an hour. And I presented in the past, the state has carpool vans, state-sponsored carpool vans, which is maybe something that could be considered in the RTA situation where we can get people from San Miguel in carpool vans, or even it is actually made for farm workers. The other thing is Waymo and electric bikes, parking the bikes during the fair time. Is it possible to get some bikes right in that area by CVS? So we get a little bit less traffic off the road during the fair, maybe a little bit more people drinking and riding their bike. The other question is, I think that the bullet train is canned. So the monies that may come from the bullet train, will it help us? Is one of the questions, but I think he left, Mr. Curry. So most of all, I think the EV is over with, the electronic mandate is over with. So hopefully we can maintain with the diesel buses, because it's not conducive in an area like this. If you were in the Bay Area and you were just going 880 back and forth straight line, but up these hills and down the hills is not conducive to having that much weight anywhere, really. But anyhow, those are my questions. And you said that we're a self-help community. So if we're a self-help community, I'm wondering how we can get more of the things, that the luxuries that the tech people enjoy, especially Waymo. I don't know if that's possible here, but I think it would be really fun for the people who come to visit and have, tourism, and decrease possible DUIs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Francisco.
Yes, sir. Francisco Ramirez. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Couple of questions I have on this is for the service that you're doing. What languages are they being done? Is it available in Spanish? Is it available to non-Spanish speaking also? Because we do have a lot of agricultural workers, and it's not just Spanish, but non-Spanish speaking people that also use the transportation. So that was a question on that survey. And we would like to collaborate with you too, with the Hispanic Business Association, to see how we can let people know about this and get that survey out so they can get better service. Is there a future thought for maybe also doing a transportation bus out to Shandon that's also increasing in population, and bringing them into town here also? That's another issue where I find a lot of people are saying, they have transportation issues that depend on others getting them a ride to and from there or to here. And that would also increase our economy here too if we help them out get here and get there. Just a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public. Do you have some answers? Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, real quickly, we did publish the surveys in Spanish, and they're in the back there. Other languages, we have a limited English equivalency program. It's a translation program that we can call into that we've got a contract with, but we don't have the surveys in any other languages but that. With regard to Shandon, so the county operates and funds with us a Shandon dial-a-ride, but it only operates 1 day per week. So it's an advance, but it's more really for medical. We really get into either Paso or into the Twin Cities Hospital. So there's something we recognize as a shortcoming, but it's not fully funded for anything more than a day a week. The other questions on, that was it. That I wanted to. Fred knows about the slow cog service. They operate a van pool service. We also work with the ag van pool service, which is a statewide program. We work very closely with them, and we actually return vehicles after we get done with them. We allow them to use them. So we're working with them. The Waymo piece is not something that we have looked into. I know there is Lyft and Uber in the area, and we do get some funding for that because they don't have wheelchair accessible vehicles, so they pay a fee every time you ride with them, and we're using that service as part of the Senior Go program that SLOCOG is funding. But the Waymo part that's self-driving, we haven't been involved with that.
Very good.
And that's what he wants me to answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
And actually, see, SLOCOG gets involved in this also. It's not just RTA. So SLOCOG actually funnels funding. Even his funding for RTA comes through SLOCOG. So it's the same board of directors, by the way, for both organizations, but they have those two different functions. And SLOCOG gets its money from the federal government and the state. Mostly, even the federal money comes through the state, and that's where we have problems sometimes because they siphon some of it off, and then we don't have as much to give away. But that's also why we were talking about self-help. Self-help is a thing that may be on the ballot in 2026 from SLOCOG. And Senator Laird has a legislation that I think Gus mentioned that he's getting passed so that any allocation that SLOCOG gets will not impact how much the local cities can get. It's not going to take any of their money away or their ability to fund locally. So we're trying to preserve all the funding options. And when we talked about sales tax, the other thing we like to know about sales tax is that the vast majority of it is paid by tourists rather than our own citizens. The only thing our own citizens pay for is if they buy major appliances or if they're buying automobiles, those things have sales tax attached. But most of the things you buy on a weekly and regular basis aren't. It's the tourism items, restaurant meals, for instance, and souvenirs. Those kind of things all get sales tax because they're not essential. But so those are the reasons why we're trying to do some of these things, because that does mean a whole extra pot of money at the state level becomes available to us that isn't available to us now. And that's where we get the matching money that we were talking about in order to get the additional funding we need for all of these different projects. Because it's the road projects as well as the public transit that comes through SLOCOG. And now they're starting to take on even housing and homelessness. So even a bigger chunk of the pie is going to be in action. All right.
Mr. Bokonakis, you have to come up to the podium so we can hear you, though. Yeah.
My question, though, to you is, this might not sound good, but this my lack of knowledge. Is $1 million heavy bus that big really necessary? I know you gave us statistics on the amount of people in the rideshare is going up, but if you look at a bus, sometimes bad PR in a bus is when you see a bus go by and there's one person on it. So have you ever done an analysis of how many actually, are those 90 passenger buses, 45s? And what is your capacity on that bus most of the time? You can come up here and answer.
Ridership, you mean? Ridership, I think.
And the other question, part two, is can we have smaller vehicles like those ride-along vehicles go around instead of those big buses?
Yeah. Joe?
It's an interesting question. So the RTA buses have 37 seats in them, but we have standing loads on the vehicles during the bell times. You have the highest productivity on the A and B routes in the entire county. Except for the trips that serve the Cal Poly campus. You have over 23 passengers per hour average on an average basis. Some days you'll see 4 or 5 people on a bus as it goes by, but remember, people are getting on and off all the time. So per hour, we're boarding 23 people per hour, which is really amazing for a city this size.
And also the $1 million cost for an electric bus, does that also include the infrastructure for powering it up too? Or is that additional?
It is. When we buy that bus, we also buy a charger with it. It doesn't include putting it in the ground, but it includes the charger. SLOCOG has funded through this study that I'm talking about, they funded the charging system for the yard over here next to the freeway in Paso Robles, as well as the charging, the opportunity charging at the train station, and then up and down the county. It's about an $8 million, for all of the charging together, it's about $8 million. And that builds us out through 2040.
Very good.
And another
thank you for coming, Joe.
Amendment to that is that right now out at our landfill, we are building a conversion thing that is going to allow us to create methane.
And some of these buses now can actually run on methane. But that's a little bit of a hybrid. And it's nothing we can do right now, but it's a potential for the future that would also reduce weight and do a lot of other things.
Very good. Thank you for coming tonight, Jeff. All right, moving on then. We'll close this item and then move on to general public comments. This is the time that public may address the City Council on items within its purview but not scheduled on tonight's agenda. Council or staff may briefly respond to statements or questions posed by the public. Please fill out a speaker card and give it to the city clerk before speaking. Speakers have 3 minutes to say what they need to say. Those people wishing to speak on any item scheduled on tonight's meeting will be given that opportunity to do so at the time the item is being considered. First off, we have Linda.
Hey, Linda George, 3126 Spring Street. So one of the things I forgot to mention last time I was here is that there's some Senate bills going up. One of them is going to be to prioritize migrant housing for the homeless. And there's another bill by the same senator from San Diego that's going to ask, or if it passes, all homeless monies will come from the county from now on. So that'll free up some more monies for the city if that bill passes in this legislative session. GSMOL, our legislative session started. I was on lobbying today opposing AB 813, which is expanding eviction laws. So I had a really great talk with Assembly of Soloche. Very nice guy. We had the home occupation workshop. It was a little backwards for us, the public. We just request that the public hearing portion be after the commission's comments because we all had about 40 follow-up questions once they spoke. So basically, I hate doing this, but I got a lot of phone calls regarding Miss Councilwoman Bill. I guess you had a coffee or some kind of meeting this weekend, and I had some furious people, phone calls, emails. You indicated that you're starting some kind of dry farm co-op that may be a conflict of interest with being on the water board. So I came today seeking clarification if that is true. It would be very sad because I sat right next to you at the debate. And you said you had zero conflict of interest. So if you do have a conflict of interest or you created one since you've been elected, people would like to know that. And the other thing is the Department of Justice has received my complaint on you, Mayor Hammond. The Public Integrity Unit, they received it last week. I'm kind of done playing with all of you guys, being harassed on social media by your friends, the cabal. I'm still stunned that people would do these things, stealing signs. I thought this was over, but it kind of upsets me that I want to move forward and keep helping the city. I have already spoken with the county homeless person. I have a lot of plans for Spring Street. I still want to do my food carts. I still want to see my neighborhood grow. Mine, not where you live, not where you live. But if you have a conflict of interest now that you did not disclose at that debate, I think it needs to be revealed because then that would invalidate the vote that you guys had the other day. So that came from you. I have a million questions, but I'm leaving the floor to you to see if you'll clarify that.
Next, Michael.
Michael Rivera, P.O. Box 3134. It's fun to watch you try to rearrange the chairs on the Titanic. But anyway, I just had an issue with my neighborhood. I guess we've given the green light to providing people the opportunity, if they choose to, and I'm going to fund this. I'm thinking about buying 100 of these, maybe 10, 15, 20, maybe 100. Maybe I could start a fundraiser for 10-foot skeletons to be put on Union Road. 2 of them. Been there for a year and a half. We're not talking about Halloween. And your police department just told me nothing we can do about it. It's not blight. It's perfectly okay. It's a manner of expression. So, Mayor Hammond, Mr. Gregory, Mr. strong. Why don't we look for a location close to your houses where we can put a 10-foot skeleton? You know what a 10-foot skeleton represents? Death and destruction. Yeah, I'm a little bit irritated. So let's look for places where you live, the entrance to your neighborhood. And I think Warren has the emails and my complaint, which has gone on deaf ears, and that's okay. Maybe the city manager would like to have a 10-foot skeleton to the entrance of his neighborhood. What about, let's put one of those to the entrances of the city of Paso Robles. Welcome to the city of death and destruction. What about that? Would you like that? I don't. And you've probably seen it going up Union Road. John?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
First I've heard of a complaint though, but yeah.
Well, I made it.
Okay.
And there are other people that don't like it that I've spoken to. So we've just given the green light to be able to place these things. Maybe the symbol of Baal. What about the symbol of Baal? You know what the symbol of Baal is? Look it up. Maybe that's the next step. Baal's going to be a 10-foot figure of Baal. Look up the symbol of Baal. Fred knows what that is. How about it, Fred? You like that? No. I didn't think so.
Anyone else? Francisco.
Francisco Ramirez in Paso Robles. I'll add to the skeleton, but he's leaving. In Latin culture, Hispanic culture, to us, the skeleton is not a bad symbol. It is a reminder of death being part of life. And we celebrate that, as you well know, because we did a celebration at the Paso Robles City Park, open to the public, free to everyone, to come in and see what the celebration of Dia de los Muertos is, which to us is to remember those in our family, those that are loved, those that have left us ahead of us. And it's a day of remembrance, those. And then that's in my Latin culture, that's what that means. So I don't know, him. I just want to add that part. But on another note, I also want to join the negative bandwagon and say that it is sports season, baseball season. Youth baseball's out there. My nephew's playing, and he calls me and texts me, "Hey, Theo, are you going to be there? Are you going to show up?" And I do, and I want to see we can fix some of those bathrooms. We're using 6th Street in front of the post office,
Robinson Field.
And if I remember right, we had a lady with another brought her daughter, young lady. She was supporting baseball and youth baseball going on here in Paso Robles. You were at the grand opening celebration, and the urinals, they're high, and these kids, they're short. So I was wondering if we could take a look at that and provide something that's lower for them to use, because it's a great joy seeing them watching out there, playing sports, being active, and so forth. But then when I see them going to the restroom and having to hurt them, there's a line because they're all waiting for the toilet to be used because the urinal's higher. So if we can check that out and see if there's possibility we can, improve that. Thank you.
Francisco. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name's Corinne Schuster. I just have a concern on something in the last council meeting regarding, is it Almond Acres School on Niblick. There's you guys are redoing the road, I believe. I'm one of the lovely Uber drivers around town, and that right-hand lane, when everybody is parked where they're not supposed to be parked to come pick up their kids, it's really dangerous, because if a car is in the right-hand lane and there are cars parked there and they're not supposed to be, well, first of all, they're in the bike lane. And second of all, cars have to actually impede on the lane. So it's kind of dangerous. And I was excited to see that that whole thoroughfare was going to be redone, but it didn't seem that that section was going to be changed. I could be wrong, but I just wanted to express that is a challenge already. And if something, I don't know where they're going to wait, but does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And we have someone.
I do have a caller online. It's Wendy Lewis.
Go ahead, Melissa. Hello, can we hear you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, Wendy Lewis with El Camino Homeless Organization, or ECHO. I'm calling in. I'd like to thank the City Council and the Mayor, city staff, and the community for their continued support of the work that ECHO is doing, trying to help people back on a pathway back into housing. We are continuing that work, and the community support is such a valuable piece of it. And I'm calling tonight to personally invite the community to one of our fundraising events that helps us raise funds to provide the life-changing resources. We have our Empty Bowls event coming up this year, which is one of the community's favorites. Many of you on the council have been to the event and can speak on how fun it is. And we have two events, one in Atascadero on April 10th, and that's a daytime event. But the one that council and the mayor and probably the Paso Robles community is excited or interested about is our Thursday, April 24th at Studios on the Park. It's an evening event, and it's from 5 to 7. We want to thank Studios on the Park and their board for donating that incredible venue. It's a really fun night with music, and the selection of bowls that are donated are just amazing. They're beautiful. So with your ticket, you get not only to take one of those beautiful bowls that you select home with you as a souvenir, you get a wonderful evening of delicious soups donated by local restaurants, and also wine donated by Justin, and beer as well donated by Wildfields. And so it's just a fun night. And so we're asking the community to continue to help us by jumping on echoshelter.org, purchasing tickets, and joining us for the fun. We continue, like I mentioned, to keep helping people back into that stability of housing and a place of their own. So far this year, we've helped 109 people. We're outpacing the record numbers from the last couple of years. And out of that 109, 100 were helped in our shelter programs and our outreach programs, and the other 9 were helped through our homeless prevention program. And so we just continue to want to share our appreciation for everybody who makes this work possible, from our sponsors of the event and our volunteers, our team, and of course, City Council and the Mayor of the City of Paso Robles. And we just appreciate the support, and we're continuing to do the work and make the life-changing situations happen. So thank you for your time tonight, and please come out to Empty Bowls 2025.
Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
No, sir.
Thank you. Bring it back then to council. We have some questions, obviously, that I want to kind of get into. Maybe direction to our Public Works, Frida Berman, with regard to Robinson Field. We might want to take a look at the restrooms just to see what they are. And I mean, they must be pretty old and ancient. There might be something we might be able to do, Frida. Want to get it on your list, just take a peek at.
It's been on the list. It's funded for 27-28.
Wow, well done.
You can't touch it because of ADA without doing the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
So, but we try to keep it as clean as possible, but it's really our only option.
But it is on calendar to get some
Yeah.
corrections done.
Totally rehabbed in 27-20.
Very good. All right, thank you. Next, probably to our interim city manager, Mr. Huat. We had some items here that I wanted to run by you. The Almond Acres, with regard to the conditions of approval, that you might want to explain what's going on there. I think.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I wanted to recognize Mr. Foganakis, who's actually here this evening, as a representative with Almond Acres, has engaged city staff on a discussion about this very issue. Just this week, our city engineer, Leslie Frazier, led a team, or is leading a team this week in collaboration with the Almond Acres executive team to look at ways to better mitigate some of that traffic on the campus. The campus is very deep, and originally it was designed or intended to be designed to handle a lot of the pickup and drop off traffic. I know school programming and some of the things have changed, which has limited that over the last several years, but we're back to having those discussions about how we can partner in looking at ways to mitigate more of that traffic on site. As you get out into the right-of-way, Niblick is one of the two major east-west corridors in the city, and it's busy most of the day, as we know. So any sort of disruption on Niblick is very noticeable. The solutions are limited out in the public right-of-way just because the right-of-way is already relatively narrow in there, and you have backyards that essentially back up right to the roadway. So any sort of widening would likely mean that we're into backyards. But we're looking at ways we can mitigate both in partnership with the school and anything else the city can do. But those analysis and discussions are ongoing right now.
Well, it was, I think, a condition of approval when they were approved for the project to be able to use the back part of the campus.
Correct. There was a requirement to have a traffic management plan, and there were other conditions that talked about mitigating traffic on the site. So those are some of the things we're working through right now, and we're having ongoing discussions with their team. They've been very amenable to looking at ways to help mitigate on site, but those discussions will continue.
Okay, very good. The next question was for Mr. Rivera about the skeleton that he has a question about. Maybe,
I can maybe jump in on that one, and then I may have Chief Nord or others jump in. But essentially, we've had, I think, 3 different departments, including the city attorney's team, review that particular issue, just based upon the preponderance of information and kind of evidence available. It doesn't meet right now the threshold for a blight or a Unicode violation. There's also some other, Mr. Rivera referenced freedom of expression. There are some other constitutional issues, considerations associated with this particular issue. I know we'll likely be continuing to monitor that, and if it does turn into a safety or a blight concern or changes, we'll reassess. But that's been, I think, the work done today. But I think we've had 3 different departments look at it. Chief, do you want to jump in and fill in any gaps I missed?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, Damian Nord, Police Chief. We went out. We received the complaint. We went out to the residents. We spoke with the residents who own the skeletons. Again, this is something, they don't just leave it out there and let it wear and tear all season long. It's decorated for each holiday. Every holiday that comes up, they change it. It's different things. And again, we did seek legal advice if it did fall within the ordinance, and it does not. So again, we took the complaint, and we will deal with each of them individually. But I would say it's a slippery slope to start saying what a neighbor can have in his private yard and what they can't. Who gets to say what's okay and what's not. Blight is usually something that shocks the conscience. And according to ours, it has to be something that is either, again, blight, a shock of the conscience, or an entire neighborhood has to be so again, we looked into it. We looked at everything we could look at, possibly trying to figure out if it was a violation of something. And again, we've discussed it with other city entities and with legal counsel, and it's just not.
I know that years ago, we as a council made a directional ordinance, I think it was, with regard to sometimes you would see where a death occurred on a roadway, someone would put up a cross or memorial where it was in our right of way. And we had said at that time that we would allow it for several months and then it had to be taken down. Because it's on private property, though, that probably would not work. Right. So is that the dilemma that we have, essentially?
It's on private property. It doesn't obstruct a view when someone's driving. There is no obstruction there.
Yeah.
So that, again, that was one we looked at. We looked at several different things within the sections, and it just doesn't fit with that residence.
I see. Okay. Thanks, Chief.
And Mayor, I'll add to Chief's point, every situation is different. So it's in every situation is evaluated on the merits of what it is at that point in time. So to say that putting certain things in certain locations and they're all equally a potential violation is probably not factual either. So our team, again, is reviewing these on a case-by-case basis as we get them. And for those that may need additional analysis, we have a process in place to look at them.
Very good.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a comment on that. There's now 2 other skeletons. One's on Miller Court and one on South Vine Street. Same size. So I don't know whether they're brotherly or what, but they're there.
Well, and we're getting them in my neighborhood too. And sometimes they're not skeletons, but they're other very tall things that attract attention. Some people like them, some people don't.
No, we live in a community and everyone needs to get along. So,
and this is something that is not. This is actually, for whatever reason, a trend across Southern California right now. This is something that is popping up in lots of other cities. So there's other people dealing with it too.
Okay. Next thing we had was a question for Councilman Beal. I would direct Councilman Beal if you want to make a statement, but we're all as elected officials supposed to consult legal counsel with any kind of conflicts, and I'm assuming you have done that.
Yeah, actually, as soon as I was sworn in, you directed me to go to council about my current contractual work with an organization. I laid out all of the different facts, and they determined that I don't have a conflict of interest. They said that if any of the facts changed, that I could contact them again, update things, and there might be a situation where I should recuse.
Okay.
Well, but right now, I don't have a conflict.
Yeah, it's all up to us individually to make sure that we're not in conflict, so whatever it takes. Is there another one I missed? I think that was it. So, okay. Oh, okay. Well, let's, you want to go ahead and do it right now? Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back here at 8 o'clock. We'll re-adjourn or reassemble for our continuation of our agenda tonight. We're on item N. Agenda items to be deferred. Mr. Huat?
Mayor, I have no items for deferral this evening.
Very good. Can we now go ahead and get the overview of items on consent calendar, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have 5 items on your consent calendar. The first is the approval of the meeting minutes from your March 18th meeting. Item number 2 is the receipt of advisory body minutes for 3 advisory bodies that have met since your last meeting, recently, excuse me. That includes the Youth Commission, Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, and the Parks and Recreation Committee. Item number 3 is the receipt of the warrant register. So the city has made $2.3 million approximately in payments since our last receipt of the warrant register. 3 of those transactions exceed $100,000, and I'll cover those now. The first is a payment to Leo Tidwell Excavating Corporation. This is for the work on the EDA federally funded grant fiber network installation in the amount of $297,941.63. The next item is to Hartzell General Engineering. This is for the Sherwood Road water main upgrade. This is paid out of the water fund in the amount of $289,654.52. The last item is Granite Construction Company. This is a payment for construction work on Phase 1 of Creston Road, as Ms. Esperanza mentioned earlier, in the amount of $254,076.22. Item number 4 on your consent calendar this evening is approval of an update to the Library Board of Trustees bylaws, a minor update. And then item 5 is the approval of a new city park event for a Cinco de Mayo celebration. That concludes the consent calendar. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Any questions? We'll go ahead and then move to consent calendar. The consent calendar are considered routine and do not normally require separate discussion. However, if any member of the council or public wishes to ask specific questions of a particular item, we can certainly get those answered before the item is taken up for a vote. Secondly, any member of the council or the public that wants to have a full discussion of the item will cause the item to be pulled and moved to the end of discussion item agendas tonight. I will now ask the council if there's any questions on items on the consent item. Council? None? All right. And anyone in the audience wishing to have any questions on the consent item? Seeing none. We'll go ahead and then bring it back then for discussion and or action. From
Mayor Hammond, I'd like to move that we approve items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda.
Second.
So it's moved by Pro Tem Gregory, second by Councilmember Strong. Any discussion on the item? All right, we'll go ahead and call for the question.
Councilmember Gregory?
Yes.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye. Yes.
Councilmember Beal?
Yes.
Mayor Hammond?
All right.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Move on to public hearings.
Thank you, Maria.
Francisco. I got your message, Francisco. Thank you. And good luck on the Cinco de Mayo. Okay, you bet. We'll now open up public hearings, and the first item is approval of resolutions determining that public convenience and necessity requires a special tax for improvement areas 1, 3, and 5 of the city Paso Robles Community Facilities District number 2022-1N, Olson Ranch, South Chandler. Ryan Cornell, you have the item.
Services Director. Tonight, we have a first of a 3-step process to update the CFD tax structure for the Olson South Chandler Ranch. If you recall, in January or earlier this year, we did a very similar process for improvement area number 2. There are 6 total improvement areas in this specific area, and so we're just updating 1, 3, and 5. I believe four-ish, I'm sorry, I'm getting improvement areas 2 and 4 mixed up, but one of them will not have a change, and then improvement area 6 is kind of the latter end of the overall phase, and so I do anticipate we'll probably have some sort of action to take an improvement area 6, but that's
Not
unknown
tonight.
at this time.
Right.
So a little bit of a background history. Community facilities districts, just what it does is just adds an additional tax, a special tax to these parcel owners. It has to be voted on by the owners of the property, and so the owners have requested a change to the rate and method of apportionment. The rate and method of apportionment is simply the amount of taxes we're charging to each parcel. Now that we're getting a little bit further into the development, we know the sizes of these houses, and so the owner or the developers have requested to update the assumptions we used back in 2019, 2020 to what is actually going to be constructed in the future. The little bit difference on this one, improvement areas 1 and 3 actually have a change to the overall indebtedness. It increases improvement areas 1 indebtedness from $20 million to $21 million, and improvement area 3 from $8 million to $9 million. Now, this action doesn't approve the bonds, it just approves the tax to pay for the bonds. So likely later in this fall time or later in this year, we do anticipate the developer requesting to pull out bonds to help pay for their infrastructure projects. Again, I want to emphasize that the bonds that we pull out are not general funded bonds. They are paid back solely by the property owners and has no bearing on the city's general fund. So there is a 3-step process, like I had mentioned. Tonight's meeting is step 1, where we approve 2 resolutions. One, approving the necessity to update the rate and method of apportionment. The second one, it improves the increase in bond and debt. The next meeting on May 6th will be the actual election. That will be very scripted for you, Mr. Mayor, at that time. And then we'll introduce for the first reading the new taxes. And then on consent on May 20th, we'll have the second reading of the ordinance. With that said, here's City Council's recommendation for tonight. I do have Jennifer Bradley from BB&K on the line. Should you have any further questions for me or her?
Any questions of staff or from our legal counsel online? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and give it out to the public for any comments and questions on this item. Okay, we'll bring it back to council for direction and or questions.
So Mayor Martin,
yeah, I wish.
I'm just so many years.
Exactly, that's okay.
Mayor Hammond, I'd like to go ahead and I'll approve each resolution separately. I think that's what we need to do.
Is that legal counsel? Okay. Yes. Okay.
So I move we approve resolution 25XXA, determining that the public convenience necessity require the rate and method apportionment of special tax for improvement areas 1, 3, 5 of Paso Robles Community Facilities District number 2022-1 for the Olson Ranch South Chandler facilities be revised.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Gregory, second by Beal. Any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, my second motion is for approving resolution 25XXXB, declaring the necessity for the City of Paso Robles Community Facilities District number 2022-1N, Olson Ranch, South Chandler facilities to incur bonded indebtedness in an increased amount for improvement for areas 1 and 3 of the Community Facilities District.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Gregory and second by Beal again. Any discussion on the item? All right, we'll call for the question.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Passed 4-0. So now we'll close public hearing and move on to discussion items. Tonight we have a couple. First one is introduction of first reading by title only, ordinance of El Paso de Robles Municipal Code updating existing animal control regulations of Title 8 and the adoption of the reference of San Luis Obispo County Code regarding animal control. We also have tonight Dr. Eric Anderson, who's the head of that department, and Todd Riener. I think you have the item for us.
Yes, sir. Good evening,
Thank you.
Mayor and Council. So the last time we read this, there's been a few changes. So after the reading, Animal Reg called us and said, hey, they had a few issues with verbiage with some of our code, and we felt we needed to straighten that out since they're going to be mostly doing the enforcement action on that. Also in that discussion, they said as of July 2025, when the new contracts go out for each city, they're going to mandate that we adopt their code by reference. So that's a little bit of a change. What we initially did was combine their code with our code. So we basically rewrote our code to mirror theirs. That would give us a little bit more control. So if there is a change on their end, we would have to bring that to council and change it. By reference is a little bit different. Basically what we do is take their entire code and just adopt it completely. So it is standalone. A copy of it is kept at the city's clerk's office for citizen review. The big difference, if something is changed, animal services can change their section and it automatically changes every jurisdiction. It's not automatic. We do confer with animal services. We have a meeting, a representative with every jurisdiction. So if there is a change, we'll all sit down, discuss it, make sure it's good for every jurisdiction. If for some reason it's not, we can basically change it through city council like we have our Paso specific codes. So it's a little bit of a change, more of use instead of content. The content is exactly the same, just the way it's adopted is different, if that makes sense. So like I said, it gives the county the ability to change and amend. The only difference between my original presentation and this one, the one difference is a duty for motorists to stop if a vehicle injures a domestic animal. We didn't include that, but since we're going to adopt this by reference, then it will be included in our code section as well. The Paso specific ones, such as how many cats and dogs someone can have, those remain the same. All the Paso specific ones remain the same. And the fines and penalties also mirror the county code, so those will be the same also. And again, there's no fiscal impact to us because we already have a contract with Animal Services. Any questions?
So, Commander, we already did the first reading on this, and so what we're doing now is basically changing the language from that first reading and making this now the first reading?
Correct. Yes, there's a different procedure with adopting by reference than just a first reading, so we are essentially starting all over again.
Okay. Questions?
Well, does this allow them to change any budgeted items that we would have?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone further? Okay. We'll open up to the public. Eric, do you have anything you want to add to the discussion? Hang on. I'll just get to the podium.
Nothing substantial to add other than to, I think, reiterate what Commander mentioned. And I'd like to speak again to the fact that this is a county ordinance which is being adopted by reference, but we've worked to make sure that we have a method where if there is a specific ordinance that the city objects to, that can be excluded, and so it's not adopted within the city. So if there's something the city doesn't want to have, we can write that out. Same thing if there's something unique to the city that you'd like to have as part of your city ordinance, it's not in the county, it can be added in. We've done a lot of work to try and get everybody in agreement with the general structure, though. And at this point, San Luis, Pismo Beach, and the Rio Grande have all adopted. Morro Bay is going next week. We'll be adopting as well. So I think that just leaves Tascadero as the last city that is in the process. So I think we've worked well together with getting this done. One of the other issues for us is the convenience of having one ordinance that our officers work off of instead of having to try and work off of 8 different ordinances in different places around the county and keep track of, what they're doing one place or the other. So it provides some safety there for them. The other issue, if we do have a ordinance update, when we've done that in the past and moving into the future would be the same, as Commander mentioned, would work together with each of the cities to define that language, identify a need, and recognize that it's something we want to adopt collectively. But this allows us then, once that decision is made, to make that that change simply to one county code as opposed to taking that to 8 different locations.
More streamlining, yeah.
Brought up again. So I guess the bottom line is I just want to reiterate that we want to make sure we're respecting the city's individuality and provenance over your jurisdiction, and that this really brings us a little bit more convenience at the same time allowing you the discretion of what you want to do.
So I think Commander Reiner was saying that, again, I'm not sure if you meet monthly or bi-monthly or whenever, but you do have a group of all the cities and county meet together with you on a periodic basis to review.
Yeah, correct. That's actually, it's within the service contract that we have a biannual meeting. So we have one in the spring, one in the fall. The one in the spring actually is coming up this Thursday. So the next one will be in October. So that's just really to kind of reiterate or go over any current issues, reviewing past service stats and things like that, and make sure that we're all sort of operating on the same page.
I know it's been a while since we've talked with you, and I know that you're in your new facility. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's working? And yeah,
it's been great. I think last time I was up here, we had just recently moved in, so we're a little bit over 2 years in now, and for us, it's operationally been fantastic, and it's working very well for our needs. I can't tell you how many compliments and enthusiastic remarks I received from the public coming through. I've received a number of people from coming around the state to tour, to look at our facility, to see what our facility is like, to pick up ideas, taking those home. I've had one person that is connected with shelters around the state that recently came down, did a tour, and has really suggested, honestly, publishing information about that and putting it out in some professional journals. The reception of the facility has been really great. So it's something that's served our community well as a whole, and we really appreciate the city's support in helping us get there too. But yeah, it's worked out very well for everybody.
Well, thank you for taking the time, Dr. Anderson, for coming tonight.
Great. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, open it up then to public. Anybody wishing to have any items, bring it up on this particular item here before animal control? Seeing none, we'll come back then to council if nobody online and for discussion and or action.
Ready to make a motion?
Pro Tem Gregory.
I move that, or I recommend we introduce by first reading by title only ordinance XXXX, amending Title 8 of the El Paso de Robles Municipal Code, excuse me, regarding updates to the existing animal control regulations and adopting by reference the San Luis Obispo County Code with certain changes and amendments thereto.
And I second that.
Okay, motion by Gregory, second by Bausch. Any discussion?
Strong.
I'm sorry, Fred.
It's okay.
Yeah, we're kind of losing the names here tonight. Second by Strong. Any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question list.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes
Thank you.
unanimously.
You don't look like him either. Okay, moving on. Item S, joint convene for the City of Paso Robles Groundwater Sustainability Agency. We have to then divest ourselves from the City Council and move into the agency for the groundwater. So we'll go ahead and roll call for Groundwater Sustainability Board of Directors.
Let the record show that Director Bausch is absent. Director Beal?
Aye.
Here. Director Gregory?
Here.
Director Strong?
Here.
Chairperson Hammond?
Here. And the first item of our agenda for that is the appointment of a primary and alternate representative to the Paso Robles Groundwater Basin JPA Board of Directors and authorizing certain administrative actions in connection with the formation of that authority. And Christopher Lackle, you have the item for us.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. For consideration this evening is the city's Groundwater Sustainability Agency appointments for representative and alternate representative to the newly formed Joint Powers Authority for the Paso Robles Groundwater Basin. This is an important step in ensuring our continued involvement in managing the groundwater basin and transitioning from the Paso Robles Basin Cooperative Committee to the new governance structure. On March 4th, 2025, the Paso Robles City Council, acting as the Paso Robles Groundwater Sustainability Agency, authorized the Joint Powers Agreement. This agreement replaces the earlier memorandum of agreement that was developed for the cooperative preparation of a groundwater sustainability plan. The Joint Powers Agreement brings together groundwater sustainability agencies in the Paso Robles Basin, establishing a formal structure for managing the basin and implementing the sustainability plan. The Joint Powers Authority's Board of Directors will oversee these efforts. The board will include elected representatives from each of the participating groundwater sustainability agencies, including Paso Robles. As per the Joint Powers Agreement, the city is required to appoint an elected official as primary representative and another as an alternate to serve on the board of directors. While there is no specific term for these appointments, the city typically reviews and updates such appointments every 2 years following regular elections. The city's current representatives on the Paso Robles Basin Cooperative Committee, Mayor John Hammond and Councilmember Chris Beal, are familiar with the Groundwater Sustainability Plan and the needs of the Groundwater Agency. Their continued participation in the Joint Powers Authority would ensure a smooth transition and maintain consistency as the new authority becomes operational. The Joint Powers Authority will not have staff or officers in place for its first meeting, which is scheduled for April 7th. As a result, the county will be assisting with the administrative tasks, including calling the first meeting and providing the necessary Brown Act notices. Approving this recommended action tonight will help ensure that the city is well represented as the Joint Powers Authority becomes operational. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Questions of council first? Anything? Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up to public. Anyone wishing to address this item, please come forward. Murray, come on up.
Before I start, a question, please. There's 2 items on this agenda, so is there 2 different public comment periods for that? There's an item 1 and an item 2.
No, it's just
under this agenda item.
Just 2 separate actions that we have to take. There's 2 separate actions that council has to make, but it's only 1 item that you can address.
Well, one is appointment, and another one is granting administration and formation to the county. And that's 2 separate items, so.
Legal counsel?
No, it's 1 item. It's correct. It's 1 overall item with 2 recommended actions that the council can take if they'd like, but it's under the header of 1 item, and it's all under the same groundwater issue.
Whatever. So Murray Powell, Templeton resident, TAG vice chair, but not representing TAG tonight. So part of this agenda item is a 3-page staff report, and I hope you folks looked at it. I'm not objecting to whether you want to name certain board members to the JPA board as both the both representatives. So, but however, the second item, which is authorize the county to take necessary administrative actions, I disagree with. First of all, the GPA is a separate, independent legal entity. So as far as that goes, the county, the way this is termed, the county is not a member. The county's GSA is a member. And why you folks think you have the authority to allow the county, I guess it's supposed to be GSA, to take over forming this group is beyond me. You have no idea even what this group is going to come up with. There's no rate study. There's no program for extraction of assessment fees and how that's supposed to be done. There, as far as I know, there's no rate study issued as of today, and there's a proposed average $4.3 million budget that has to be funded on their own. that this GPA is not funded by other funds like from the city or from the county or whatever. And this staff report is kind of laughable because it has several items in here that keeps repeating that the GPA does not have any staff or officers, and also keeps recommending the county take necessary administrative actions. Also, it mentions in here that it sounds like there's going to be a first meeting sometime, quote, in April. I've been told that there's a meeting set up for April 7th at 4 p.m. And guess where it is? It's in Slow City at the public library. Why is the Paso Basin GPA having meetings that are not in North County? So you guys need to look into this and see what's going on, because this is not going in the right direction.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sharon?
Good evening. My name is Sharon Roden. I am a planning commissioner, but I am speaking as a private citizen. Prior to being a member of the JPA, those of us within the Paso Robles GSA were paying approximately 15% of the total combined budget for the basin. As a member of the JPA, that will be reduced to 2 to 4% because it is based upon water usage within the basin. But we have an equal vote with other participating GSAs. What if we had not joined the JPA? We as an agency would still have the same obligations and responsibilities as the combined efforts that exist under the JPA. But we would have to start from scratch. We would have to create a GSP pertaining only to the city, a 1 to 2 year process which would put us beyond the March 26th deadline. We would, as a single entity, still have to provide the same yearly reports, 5-year evaluations, set targets, actions triggered if these targets not met, establish monitoring networks, extraction fees, project lawyers, administrative staff, and data management, plus another rate study and a 218 process. We cannot just say we don't want to participate. So what are the costs? Costs for reporting and administration for us would be in excess of $500,000 a year. This would not include specific project funding, outreach, data collection, well verification, the Miller program, or any other project we may require for the benefit of our GSA and our city. When Mr. Bausch voted against this JPA, clearly he was not representing the best interests of this city or our taxpayers. Without it, we as a city bear all costs related to the GSA. This is to say if the state would even allow it. They would most likely encourage us to be a part of the JPA. And if we refused or did not do that, most likely they would step in control. Believe me, with over 40 years of experience with state and DWR, you don't want them in control of any portion of our basin. It is true that courts have not declared an overdraft in our basin, but the state has done so. We can debate how much we are in decline, but the facts are that diminishing groundwater levels have created dry wells. Call it what you want, but it's a problem. Having the JPA is the most cost-efficient and effective tool, and it will still be given limited authority by the GSAs. The effects of membership in the JPA are clear. Given the budget will be paid by the major users of water within our basin, this will lead to irrigation efficiency, use for needs, not wants, some alternate crops which have little or less demand for water. This all leads to one result: reduction of water used by large pumpers will result in more water becoming available for the basin as a whole.
Can you summarize, Sharon? Yeah.
Our inclusion in the JPA reduces costs to our city residents. It gives us a stronger voice and vote. Lastly, our GSA would be a champion for the de minimis users. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else? Francisco.
Francisco Ramirez, I like to ditto what Sharon just said.
Go ahead. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. Anyone online? All right. Bring it back to council. First question from Mr. Powell. Maybe, Christopher, you can kind of, on item 2, discuss and tell us a little more about what the county's going to actually be doing with that action.
So that's just establishing the first meeting, doing the Brown notices, making sure that that we have a place to hold the meeting and sending out those notices. Some pretty basic functions in order to get the JPA's first meeting on the books. And that has been scheduled for April 7th, like Mr. Powell said, but it's not in San Luis Obispo. It's going to be here in the Paso Robles City Council chambers.
Right.
Here.
Where it's always been.
Yeah.
Basically. Right. Okay. The other question I had.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure, go ahead, Steve.
So, Christopher, while we're on that subject, so we'll always, the JPA will always host those meetings in the North County.
As far as I know, that'll be up to the JPA at the time,
Okay.
but I assume that they're all going to be held in the North County. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't.
And then the county is just purely taking an administrative actions at this point, helping the JPA set up their board of directors.
That's correct.
And the county will be part of the JPA, just like any of us, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, they have a seat at the table representing all those folks in the county.
In their GSA, yes.
Including de minimis users. So essentially, can you go again? We've got San Miguel that chose not to be part of the JPA at this time. We have Paso Robles, San Juan Water District, and also the El Pomar Water District. So 4 of us are currently members of this JPA.
Yep, the JPA has been signed. There is a 4-member JPA that was established.
What do you anticipate this next meeting to be? Just a formation meeting? And
yeah, there's several items. There's a draft agenda that's being circulated. I probably don't want to read off what's there because it is still draft, but we expect to probably get that out tomorrow.
Okay. And that'll be coming out by the weekend so people can review it. And it's next week sometime, I think?
April 7th.
Monday.
Monday. Okay. Okay.
Mayor
right.
Martin, I'm twice Hammond. So I would like to echo Ms. Roden's comments. I believe that this is the best way to go. I was a little worried about having the meeting down in San Luis, but that it's here, we're good, and I understand the county's purpose. So our city council, attorney, you want 2 separate actions to be safe on this? Okay. So I move that we appoint Mayor Hammond and as a city representative to the JPA Board of Directors and appoint Council Member Chris Beal as the city's alternate to the JPA Board of Directors.
Second.
Motion by Gregory, second by Strong. Any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
So my second motion is to authorize the county to take the necessary administrative actions in connection with the formation of the JPA, including but not limited to the administrative tasks identified in the report, calling the first meeting of the JPA and providing the appropriate Brown Act notice of such meeting until the JPA appoints staff and officers.
Second.
Okay, motion by Gregory, second by Strong. Any discussion? Call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you. Now we're going to adjourn the City of Paso Robles Groundwater Sustainability Agency back to the City of Paso Robles, and we'll reconvene that and let the record show that we have 4 council members, Beal, Strong, Hammond, and Gregory in attendance.
Do we need a motion for adjournment?
I'm not sure. Do we need to do that? Just a direction, yeah.
City manager report.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, we just had to come out of the groundwater agency. Now we're back in city council. Okay. So now we get our city council hats back on, and the next item is the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items this evening. We're excited to share that we have a working group that's been working on obtaining some sponsorships for July 4th. Not prepared to kind of get into the details there yet, but just to say that we feel like we're off to a pretty strong start. We've got a lot of good feedback and interest this year, I think a little bit more so than last year, just because I think we're a little more coordinated with our community partners. And I want to thank Frida Berman, who's been leading that effort and really getting us together and organized. So we're excited about the prospects and where things are headed there. More to come. We're also excited to share that we have our new homeless services manager who has started this week. In due time, she'll be in front of you all to introduce herself formally. I know there's a lot of work, and she's excited to get started. I was able to meet with her this morning, and she has a very ambitious onboarding plan that Ms. Fortin has put together for her. So we're really excited to have her on board. Her name's Ashley Hernandez. And then finally, just for the public's edification, I believe the council's aware, but the utility billing and related payment services are now located here in this building upstairs, part of our space relocation and analysis work that we're doing. So we're excited to welcome the utility billing team to City Hall. We're able to do that this week, and they're fitting right in and doing a great job. So good news is more services consolidated to one building in the center of town. And with that, that concludes my report for this evening.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. On to council business and committee reports. Ms. Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very quickly, this was sort of an outreach period for me. I was invited to join people over at Traditions for coffee, and I learned a lot and shared a lot with them. It was a great experience. And then I also had the opportunity to connect with a lot of Latino groups over this period. HBA invited me for their lunchtime mixer to say a few words, and I always learn, and I'm always grateful to be able to share information about the city to try to engage people more. I was also was able to say a few comments with a Corazon Latino group. They sort of met with a lot of different groups and was, again, able to share information. I connected with Mujeres de Acción and MICOP. So there was kind of a theme that wasn't in my plan, but that's the way my calendar worked out. Along those lines, I'm grateful for Chief Stornetta and his staff. We talked a little bit about bilingual outreach, and we just sort of came up when we were speaking, and so he's connecting now with people at Oak Park to sort of identify some opportunities for bilingual outreach. And also thank you, Angelica Fortin, for providing me with bilingual materials on parks and library and recreation. I had an afternoon over at Oak Park, and it was helpful to have those materials, and people were very excited to learn about them. So that's my report. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me be of service.
Thank you, Chris. Fred Strong.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I really don't have much of a report because tonight we had all my people here giving reports. So my report's been given multiple times tonight. So all I can say is I'll be at that meeting tomorrow with the RTA. All right.
Very good. Thank you, Fred. Councilman Gregory.
Okay. Yes, Mayor Hammond.
Yeah, there you go. Got it right, finally.
So I had the pleasure of meeting with John Pashong and our Mayor Hammond, and some of the items we were talking about, and I just confirmed with Greg Haas from Carvajal's office. It looks like the clinic for the veterans is moving forward on Creston Road, so they'll now have it's coming. It's taking, so there's some red tape, but all the agreements are signed and we're moving forward. So that'll save the veterans of the North County a lot of time and travel to have an emergency medical clinic here for the Veterans Administration. It's very exciting. I went to the LAFCO meeting. Not a lot of activity there, but we're just continuing on as LAFCO does. And there's quite a bit of activity coming up this year still on the, there's some very difficult community service district issues on the coast, including San Simeon and now Cambria and others. So we'll be tackling those on LAFCO. The other item, let's see, we met with ECHO, Mayor Hammond and I, just to talk about some of the operation things for ECHO coming up. And I highly recommend the Studios on the Park event. It's the Empty Bowls. It's a really nice event. It's very casual and very effective fundraiser. and you get to meet a lot of the people that actually work for and support ECHO, including a good-sized company here called Howard's. I don't know if you guys know Howard's, but they work and specialize in refinishing furniture products. And they're one of their bigger supporters, and it's really a nice family. I got to go to the pickleball court groundbreaking. I brought Augie with me, but he wasn't allowed to dig. So, and for the improvements, and they're moving right along. And I guess we'll have pickleball courts before we have bathrooms, but hey, the bathrooms are only 150 feet away, the ones that are there or whatever.
Yeah, they go on.
It'll work.
Right.
And I appreciate everybody's effort on that. And Frida, thank you for getting that done. I went to the home occupation workshop at the Planning Commission. I thought it was well done. Warren stayed in control. And there's not a lot of difficult issues there. It's a matter of clarity and the simplification of the code. And there's some things that we're going to have to address and some things we just can't because you can't. So that'll come out some more. We have another public meeting on that coming up. And then last evening, I spent an hour and a half here with the fire department and building department discussing the new fire maps and what it's going to mean for our city. And I just want to, Chief Starnett is not here tonight, but Randy's here.
Yeah, Randy.
So I just want to put a thank you out to Randy and Chief Starnett for the work they did 2 years ago. They literally changed all of our fire maps here and just in Paso Robles. And when you take a look at the rest of the county, we're the only city with no red areas, which means extremely or very high risk. And San Luis has over 2,000 homes in that. Tascadero's got them all over the place. Bisbal Beach is extremely high. We have none. It may not make much difference, though, because the building code is being reviewed, and I won't say anything other than the state of California does what they want with the UBC, the Uniform Building Code. But the important item, and I'm just going to tell my little quick story, is I live in a high-risk area on the west side on Hilltop, and I got my insurance was canceled. So I called the company up and I said, "Why are you canceling me?" And Dan Jones, by the way, had the same thing happen to him, and they misreported how it was constructed. So my house is constructed under WUI, which is wildland fires. So I had all the ingredients of wildland fires on my home. I cleared everything they asked to clear. Hired my daughter very expensively to fly a drone, make sure the trees aren't hanging over my house. And when we're said and done, the insurance company gave me my insurance back for $2 less a year. I'm not going to say that always happens, but it's a really good start. And then the fire department, I don't know if Randy wants to speak to this, but they're working on a template to come out and meet with people in their homes in the high-risk areas. If you end up getting, I think it's called, 7.3 on the code, and that's basically the WUI code, if that happens to you. So it's not a code requirement at this point, but with the UBC code possibly changing, and maybe Randy, you could say something about that, it may affect all new homes in those areas.
Yeah, Randy, can you give us a little report from last night? I mean, a lot of people, you had to turn it on, but a lot of people couldn't make it tonight. I couldn't. So can you tell us what happened last night?
In this, I can summarize a little bit in that the fire hazard severity zones that Chief Starnett worked so hard on the state responsibility areas, we are finding that did save us some impacts into the local responsibility areas when we look at that map. So that will hopefully help with individual insurance companies and how they view those zones and the hazard of our community. Chief Patty is looking at community education opportunities, utilizing our existing staff to go out with any residences that do have issues, or if their insurance company does reach out to them. And by doing those assessments, hopefully we can help educate not only our community, but then throughout kind of the region, because there are other communities that are facing the same thing. In addition to that, we're still pushing to have our wildfire designation from 1st Street to 24th Street, and looking at additional opportunities, because some insurance companies do give discounts or look at those wildfire communities in a different context. So multiple avenues. We are going to have more on the fire hazard severity zones, including a public education opportunity here at the library coming up.
Very good. Yeah, I was canceled too. Most people, I think, on the west side had an issue. So
Yeah, thank you, Randy.
very good. Thank you, Randy.
So I talked to one of the developers after this, and they're in a pickle because everything outside of the city limits, well, excuse me, developed city property on the east side is in the high zone. All of Olson, all of Chandler, everything. And so the quagmire they're up against, we had a developer sitting right behind me, Mike, from the HBA, and they have 150 homes. They're trying to decide how to build them because if you build your wildland fire interface, it's an additional $9,000 to $10,000 per home. And they're already not making money on building their homes, so they say, so, but whatever.
And if I can add one thing just for public education, WUI stands for Wildfire Urban Interface, and that's where homes kind of meet a wildland area. And that's where particularly it's susceptible. So when you hear that acronym, that's what that stands for.
Yeah, and one of the interesting standards for that is no plants within 5 feet of your house.
Wow.
Period.
Wow. No
All the way around.
landscaping up close. Yeah.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. For me, I'll kind of tag on to what Pro Tem Gregory said. I had a mayor's meeting in Tascadero last Friday, and actually Chief Stornetta and the Tascadero Fire Chief gave an excellent report, not only on WUI and the hazardous land interface that's happening with the state, but also with the ambulances situation that's going in North County and actually all of San Luis Obispo County. So a very good, informative mayor's meeting hosted by Tascadero. The Sherwood Park pickleball, of course, we're all there, I think, except for Bausch, and then that was great to see that. We also had a meeting with Supervisor, First District, John Prashong, Steve Gregory, and I, and I also had, Steve was also at this meeting too, where we had League Representative Dave Molinax giving us an update on what's happening at the state level. Very good, informative meetings. APCD, we're in the middle of finding our new APCO, Air Pollution Control Officer. Had meetings yesterday, and we're going to be having another big meeting coming up on the 14th, which is one I'm going to ask Chris Beal here in a minute with regard to another conflict I have with the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee there. But other than that, pretty much my calendar. And upcoming events for the city, we have the Paso Robles Youth Commission Advisory Committee meeting April 2nd at 5 p.m. Development Review Committee April 7th, 3:30 p.m. The Paso Robles Planning Commission meeting will be here in this room April 8th at 6:30. The Library Board of Trustees, April 10th at 9 a.m. And this is the one, Chris, that I'm going to ask you about, and Mr. Gregory can't make it, so the Paso Robles Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, April 14th, that's the day I've got to be all day with the APCD, and I think Mr. Gregory's going to be gone out of town, so I'm wondering if you might be able to do that. 14th at 3:30, or excuse me, at 1:30, yeah. We'll talk. Yeah, exactly. Development Review Committee, again, April 14th, 3:30. The Paso Robles Park and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting is going to be April 14th at 4 o'clock. The Paso Robles City Council meeting, again, here, April 15th at 6 p.m. will be our next time. And I think that does it for our future calendar. So I'm looking then, looks like if there's anything else good for the order, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
It's a motion by Strong, second by Gregory. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. So long.